there was a Supreme Court case, or I should say a Supreme Court ruling following a dispute between the Texas National Guard and the federal government on taking down the barbed wire that they used to trap and kill undocumented migrants. Texas has defied the Supreme Court ruling and has installed more barriers. Texas Democrat calls on Biden to seize control of the National Guard in Texas. It's time, boys. Let's go. Let's go. It's time. It's happening. How the can you just defy the Supreme Court? You're going to have to forgive me for if I speak ignorantly on this, but my understanding is that if the Supreme Court is ruling on a dispute between the federal and state powers, and the federal wins and the state just continues to act belligerently, the federal can just full on send in like troops if they want to. This is like, it's one thing for the president to ignore a Supreme Court ruling a la Andrew Jackson, but he's the president, okay? The Texas state government is not the president. They're a state. So they don't have the clout. Yeah, it's time to balkanize Texas, just like they want. Texas allegedly has the right to break into 5 smaller states, which will never happen. It's time to force them to do it, you know? The Texas National Guard does ultimately answer to Joe Biden. They are an extension of the power of the federal government, the Pentagon. They're part of that hierarchy. So Joe Biden can seize the Texas National Guard if they want to. A Texas congressman has urged President Biden to take the state's National Guard under federal control if Republican Governor Greg Abbott defies the Supreme Court ruling allowing federal agents to remove a wage warrant, which they did. Joaquin Castro, after Abbott posted on X from his Twitter, saying the Texas National Guard would continue to hold the line in Eagles Pass, a popular migrant crossing point, stating Texas will not back down from our efforts to secure the border in Biden's absence. You know, I've said a lot of like ironic American chauvinist things in the past, but I want to be clear that I'm not being ironic here. Biden needs to seize their National Guard and use like full military force on this one. Not a joke. If U.S. like this is literally how the GOP wants to do their coup, by the way, forming incredibly strong, like localized fascist regiments in red states and using them like as the federal government is weakened, using them to effectively like rule their own constituencies. They've been doing this for years. They're going like that is what they want to do. That is their plan moving forward. They can always fall back on that if the whole federal government takeover thing doesn't work. Biden can legally seize control of the Texas National Guard, and he should. If he doesn't, it would be immense weakness demonstrated for nothing. Move one of the carrier groups in the Middle East. Move a carrier group right up the Rio Grande, right there, just right against Eagle Pass. You know, absolutely. That will be the end of the federalist system. Unironically, like if we establish a precedent where Texas or any other red state can just like, you know, yeah, we will like catch and kill migrants, you know, fuck them. Greg Abbott was literally saying the only reason we don't shoot migrants is because the Biden administration would charge them with murder. He said that. We listened to it on stream. He said that. He was being interviewed and he said, yeah, we're doing everything we can to get these migrants out. The only thing we're not doing is shooting them because if we did, the Biden administration would charge us with murder. In an environment like this, allowing him to defy a Supreme Court ruling and a federal order, it would be like an unbelievable succession of strength to them. Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily the game we want to play or legitimize, though, Alec Gunter. He's a lib, and I don't have faith in Biden not being a pussy. He is a pussy, that is true. Tangentially related, but Abbott is an incredibly ineffective governor. His big thing for a bit now has been school vouchers, and the Texas legislature has refused to pass it, and he keeps calling special sessions and getting mad. Well, that's why he's hyper-fixating on the immigration thing, you know? I don't know, Andre says hello. Do you care to explain to a non-American why the Supreme Court voted that way when they're considered conservative these days? John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett switched over to the liberal side. I'm a little surprised myself. I'm not really sure why. I'm not surprised by... It was 5-4 in our favor. Roberts moving over doesn't surprise me. Amy Coney Barrett, though, that's odd to me. It might have been like a federalism thing. Like it might have been like a broader ideological... Constitutionally, this is an obvious decision. Yeah, but look at the 4 conservative court justices who voted against it. Whether or not something is constitutionally valid has very little to do with whether conservatives will support it. Liberals might shift their votes based on what they think the Constitution actually means or refers to, but objective reality has never gotten in the way of ideologues on the right. While state National Guards ordinarily fall under the control of their respective governors, they can be federalized in a mechanism known as the Title X status, meaning they are placed under the control of the President and Defense Secretary, with active duty officers taking day-to-day command. This was used by the Bush administration in response to Hurricane Katrina and has also been used in recent years to take control of National Guard troops for deployment in Iraq and Afghanistan. In 1957, Eisenhower federalized the Arkansas National Guard after they were initially ordered by the state governor to block black students from attending the Little Rock Central High School during the Civil Rights era. Following this, the National Guard helped protect the black students as they attended the school, along with federal troops in the 101 Airborne Division. So this would actually be the first time since 1957 that Title X status has been employed for the president to do something progressive when a state governor tried to stop it. Referencing this precedent on Twitter, Will Bunch, a national opinion columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, commented, "It's time for Biden to federalize the Texas National Guard and maybe send in the 101 Airborne like Little Rock. This nonsense needs to stop." Sorry, Chuds. The razor wire will stop as we deploy like thousands of paratroopers, jumping out of a fleet of carrier planes. Here's his insane statement. No, yeah, Greg Abbott's take on this is that, like, by failing to protect the border, Joe Biden is, like, derelict in his responsibility as a leader of the government and is essentially acting unlawfully, like, with willful negligence. And therefore, he is ignoring the ruling from the Supreme Court because he has no responsibility, or sorry, he has no option but to fulfill this responsibility in the place of Joe Biden. Greg Abbott doing mandate of heaven bit, yeah. Fine, about time we got some of that. The federal government has broken the compact between the U.S. and the states. The executive branch of the U.S. has a constitutional duty to enforce federal laws protecting states, including immigration laws in the books right now. President Biden has refused to enforce these laws and has even violated them. The result is that he has smashed records for illegal immigration. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and the other visionaries who wrote the U.S. Constitution foresaw the state should not be left to the mercy of a lawless president who does nothing to stop external threats like cartels smuggling millions of illegal immigrants across the border. That is why the framers included both Article 4, which promised the federal government shall protect each state against invasion. Remember, Republican rhetoric on immigration has to frame it as an invasion. That's why they always talk about it as an invasion. Wait, Hamilton was a massive federalist? Oh, if under Hamilton's system, if a state government defied a ruling like this, Hamilton's official response in the modern era would have been to nuke Texas. He was the most federalist guy. He would have it that God Emperor Biden would have Greg Abbott's head mounted on a pike in front of the Capitol building, you know? The failure of the Biden administration to fulfill the duties imposed by Article 4 has triggered Article 1, Clause 3, which reserves to this state the right of self-defense. For these reasons, I have already declared an invasion under Article 1, subsection 10, Clause 3. Is that paragraph? This means paragraph, right? It's paragraph 10, Clause 3? Section? Article 1, Section 10. Okay. To invoke Texas's constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. That authority is the supreme law of the land. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, my dude, and supersedes any federal statutes to the contrary. The Texas National Guard, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and other Texas personnel are acting in that authority as well as state law to secure the Texas border. Could this start a war? Well, I think it's just hot, it's hot air, right? If Biden actually flexed his power, then it wouldn't need to be. However, if Greg Abbott was committed to what he is saying, and it wasn't just hot air, yeah, it would be a war. Yeah. What he is saying is essentially like a little mini civil war bit. Now, he is employing this as rhetoric. Like, he will not commit to an actual military engagement with federal troops, obviously, because that would be insane. But what he is describing right now essentially is treasonous. Yeah, stuff like this shouldn't just be a matter of getting him to stop. Like, he should be arrested. He should be in the stocks. Would Biden flex his powers, though? He has to. He has to. If Biden doesn't do this, it just lets him do it, you can never forgive him. Everything that annoying internet Twitter leftists have said about how Biden exists purely to cede ground to the right will instantly become true in a moment. This is the test of faith right here. Right now, unambiguously, clearly, with we have the perfect lineup. Biden objectively has the authority to do this. There's no oh, well, they'd have to rule on it. They already did rule on it. He has the authority to do this. He has the authority. It is a red state doing borderline secessionist. If they're not going to do this, then we'll follow our own supreme law of the land to fight back against the invasion of illegal immigrants. If he lets this go, if he lets Texas do this, then you will know without any doubt that Democrats, the DNC, the liberal establishment broadly, they don't care about you. They only care about status quo institutionalism. Even though institutionally Joe Biden has the right to do this, this would be like a level of weakness which cannot be justified in any way as anything other than like malicious, willful negligence. Yeah, you can't have a state not recognize the federal government's power. Yeah, exactly. That's called secession. You can't do that. Vosh, if they weren't going to do anything, they wouldn't have taken it to the Supreme Court. Well, now it's gone to the next level where Greg Abbott's just defying the Supreme Court and the federal government. So Biden, the next step that Biden has to do is, this, guys, I know this seems kind of like hot air right now, but this might very well end up being like a historical event. Depending on how this plays out, if Biden actually does engage with this could end up being the fulcrum of like America's political future. I don't think there will actually be like fighting between Texas and federal troops because one, that would be insane, and two, that would be over pretty quickly. In terms of like available firepower, you know, it's not exactly an even deck. The National Guard wouldn't fight the Army, no, but Texas does have military groups that aren't controlled by the federal government, and they're probably staffed with the most insane people, you know? If Biden lets him do this, it means states can start cracking down on queer people and know the Fed won't stop us. Yeah, what does it say if a state can just do what it wants and ignore both the federal government and the Supreme Court? What if a state, what if like Ohio or Tennessee decided like, yeah, we're just going to kill trans people? Like, oh, the federal government, the Supreme Court will stop us? Okay, no, they won't. Like what? Like we can do whatever, you know. Letting Texas do what they want here is a massive concession. It's essentially just announcing to every red state that like nothing will challenge them as long as they have the balls to ignore Supreme Court rulings. The Civil War LARP has already started. Oh yeah, it has. Texans have been waiting for this one for a long time. Is Abbott breaking the law? Yeah, objectively. There's literally in defiance of both a federal and a Supreme Court ruling. The feds are staging a civil war and Texas should stand their ground, a GOP congressman tweeted after the Supreme Court ruled for the Biden administration. And just like the first civil war, reactionaries are already saying that it's actually the union that's starting this. Federal congressperson, by the way. Again, in a sane country, this person should be in the stockade. Treason. How big of a problem is mass illegal immigration? It's not great. Like, there are issues to it. There are benefits too. It's complicated. It's nowhere near as much of an issue as people pretend it is. There are like legitimate benefits to having that many immigrants come in, and we do have like the domestic labor and production base to support them. If we want to reduce illegal immigration, we should probably work on like helping ally and partner with South American nations and Central American nations to help stabilize them. Make sure they have a good economy, make sure that the situation over there is good enough that people don't feel the need to flee to us, that kind of stuff. By the way, people are really energized over this. You know that that tweet that I made, we'll all go down to Dixie? This almost never happens to me. 1.1K comments swarming with boomer Republicans who are talking about how like they're ready to win a civil war against the fat Antifa or whatever. Actually, this almost never happens to me, especially because it's such an obvious meme post. Like this isn't really like I'm not like a New York Times writer making an impassioned, sincere plea. It's the Rebel Tears meme image, but they're all in here like frothing at the mouth. They're really ready for violence right now. I bet you if the federal government marched into Texas, they would probably they would get shot at by civilians. Yeah, the Texas Army National Guard and Air National Guard are both under the control of the federal government, but the Texas State Guard isn't. How many people are part of the Texas State Guard? Directly under the control of the governor. These people are probably psychos. Size? 1,600. Okay, so nothing. Smaller than like LAPD probably. Does every state have a state guard? I don't think so. And there are different rules for each one. That's in 2020 though. It's probably in the ballpark. How about the Florida Civil Guard? Yeah, they're crazy too. LAPD have 12,000 people? Jesus. Good Lord. NYPD is 35,000. Yeah, I knew that. NYPD is insanely big. Yeah, guys, I'm not trying to like, I don't want to do, okay, the first rule of politics is that nothing ever happens until it does happen, you know? I don't want to be alarmist, but there is a very real possibility that something big happens here. Like really, really big. I mean, no matter what, something big is going to happen because even Joe Biden refusing to crack down on this treasonous behavior would be a huge concession to the right. Ideally, what do you think Biden should do? Seize control of the Texas National Guard and take control of the whole area. The guard over there that Greg Abbott's controlling can be just taken by the federal government. Again, the right is really rallying around this. Greg Abbott posted that thing we went over only 1 hour ago. It already has 40K likes. I know this is Twitter, but at the same time, like, it doesn't take much to see the GOP is begging for this. Do you think the Texas National Guard would accept Biden taking control of them? If they didn't, if the National Guard in Texas refused, first of all, they would, yes. But if they didn't, for some reason, like there's been some quiet effort to replace all their officers with Texas loyalists or something. If they didn't, that would be like actual, like, if that happened, then it would be actual, like, Vernon Sherman time. That a refusal to cede command to the commander in chief would be like actual on the books, unironic military tribunal, court martial treason. Or like mutiny, or whatever the term they would go for is. It would be like an actual, like, oh, these people are all getting arrested or being put underneath the jail. So if they did that, that would be pretty wacky.